Earlier today, we got to see a side of President Trump that we don't get to see very often. He discussed topics that are existential in nature, ranging from faith to the afterlife. Take a look.
End it. I want to end it. We're not losing American lives. We're not losing American soldiers. We're losing Russian and Ukrainian, mostly soldiers. Some people, as missiles hit wrong spots or get lobbed into cities like Kiev and towns. But, if I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons. Well, I think I saved a lot of lives with India, Pakistan. They were going at it. The planes were being shot down. That was going to be maybe a nuclear war if I let that go. And I did that through trade.
This whole segment was really interesting to me because we don't see President Trump get vulnerable talking about good deeds or morality, works, let alone his faith walk. Now, as a Christian, I believe that none of us can work or earn our way into heaven. It's not as if there's some sort of ladder, and the more good deeds we perform, the higher we climb on the totem pole and we get closer to everlasting life or anything like that. I had a pastor who once said that whenever people ask him, "Oh, when did you get saved?" or "Tell me about your salvation story," like, "Oh, when was your salvation?" he always answers that question, "It was 2,000 years ago on the cross," because the point he tries to teach people is that, again, none of us can earn our way into heaven. The only reason we even have the option of eternal life is because of God's grace, his mercy, his love, and Jesus's sacrifice and his ultimate victory over death. Now, I do believe that if you have faith in God, that faith will manifest in good works, so that you will want to do good things, that you will want to follow the will of God and become closer to him. So it's not to say that your good deeds and good works don't matter. I think that can be indicative of where your heart is and the strength of your spiritual faith. But the reality is that President Trump is getting older. We all are. And he's already had at least 2 close calls with death in terms of the assassination attempts last year. So I'm not surprised that he's thinking about these existential issues and thinking about what life looks like after death. Well, he is interested, obviously, in ending the war in Ukraine. You can tell it's really a passion of not just his, but Melania Trump. Melania actually wrote a letter to President Putin asking him to take care and think about the children. Well, yesterday, when Zelensky and all the other Europeans came to the White House, Zelensky actually brought a letter from his wife to give to President Trump to give to Melania.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. If I can, first of all, thank
Please.
you for invitation, and thank you very much for your efforts, personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you. And using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, adopted children, and my wife, First Lady of Ukraine. She gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
Oh, I want it.
Yeah. So we're saying this sensitive topic. Yes, please. And thanks to our partners and that you supported this format. That after our meeting we can have leaders who are around us, UK and France, Germany, Italy, Finland, EU, NATO. I mean all partners around Ukraine supporting us. Thanks to them, and thank you very much for invitation.
Thank you very much for being here.
What I absolutely love about this is when it comes to the discussions of bringing this war to an end, a lot of the focus is on geopolitics and the stake that various leaders and nations have in resolving this conflict. But whenever we discuss that, it overlooks the human element of all of this. So by prioritizing children, those who are the most vulnerable among us, it really reminds us of the human suffering that comes with war. And so I think this is great. I love that the first ladies are communicating. It is really exciting. Obviously, it has been a whirlwind the last few days, from the meeting with Putin in Alaska to Zelensky and the European leaders coming to the Oval Office. So much progress has been made. Well, Caroline Levitt held a press briefing in the White House earlier today to give updates on how everything is progressing. And whoa, she opened just guns blazing. Take a look.
However, one thing that has absolutely not changed is the media's negative and downright false coverage of President Trump and his foreign policy accomplishments. From the beginning of this entire process, much of the left-wing media has been actively rooting against the President of the United States in the pursuit of peace. Initially, the media ridiculously claimed that President Trump was somehow beholden to Russia for even agreeing to have a face-to-face discussion with President Putin inside of the United States. The media said President Trump was making a grave mistake by, quote, legitimizing Putin. They were aghast that President Trump would treat another world leader like a world leader. The media relentlessly attacked President Trump and claimed he suffered a, quote, major defeat for not immediately emerging with a final agreement, even though he said heading into that meeting, this was a meeting to listen and to understand how to move the ball forward. All weekend following those historic U.S.-Russia bilateral talks, we listened to clueless pundits on television trying but failing to claim that the president had failed. The so-called experts in the foreign policy establishment, whose record is nothing but endless wars, trillions of wasted taxpayer dollars, and dead Americans, have the nerve to try and lecture President Trump, who has solved 7 global conflicts in 7 months, about peace. This is the same president, by the way, who brokered the Abraham Accords in his first term, on top of more than half a dozen other peace deals this year alone, as I just said. We also saw yesterday the president of Ukraine and all of the other major leaders of Europe fly across the Atlantic Ocean to meet President Trump at the White House because of the progress that was made, and that, if you ask the media, failed meeting, but it was not. It was highly productive and it was successful. This is why Americans' trust in the mass media is at a lowest point in more than 5 decades. Diplomacy is a delicate process, and instead of reporting the facts about what is happening here at this White House and what is happening between this president and other leaders around the world, many outlets in this room continue to try to actively undermine the president and sabotage the efforts towards peace.
Yeah, I mean, if the mainstream media is going to lie, if the mainstream media is going to be aggressive, then it makes sense that the press secretary is going to be equally aggressive to make sure that the truth gets out there and to make sure that facts aren't manipulated or distorted in order for the media to push their preferred narrative. Now, we're going to get into some individual clips showing Caroline Levitt basically engaging some of these reporters head on. But first, I would like to acknowledge Preeson Colnon, Sinane Kuso, Stacey L., Robert Stevens, and Dean Diefdorf as the members of today's Governor's Club. These are people who give tips and super thanks to the channel. I am so glad that you enjoy. And also, I would like to wish a very special happy belated birthday to Jacolby, a longtime viewer of the channel. Thank you for letting me know it was your birthday, and I appreciate you tuning in over all of these years. I hope you were able to do something fun to celebrate. Well, one of these tussles was with an ABC News reporter. So yesterday, President Trump issued a statement basically providing an update as to how the negotiations are going on with Vladimir Putin. And this ABC News host, basically her question was, were you guys telling us the truth when you released that statement? I mean, if you read in between the lines, that's very clearly what she's asking.
As of right now, there is no ceasefire in place. We've seen Russia continue its attacks on Ukraine. What indications is the president getting from Putin that he wants to have this meeting with Zelensky soon?
Because he spoke to him directly yesterday.
And he expressed that sooner rather than later.
He spoke to that directly yesterday, and the president put that in his statement that he gave to all of you, the news media, knowing you'd be asking following that conversation in the effort of transparency.
And look, we already saw similar things with Marco Rubio this past weekend. He was asked to basically give details on all of these upcoming plans. And Marco Rubio, I believe it was on ABC, he told Martha Raddatz, I'm not going to tell you this on public television. These are sensitive topics and sensitive discussions happening behind the scenes. You'll find out when it's time to find out. But for now, it's confidential. It's sensitive for a reason as we're trying to negotiate and move around all of these various pieces. So it doesn't surprise me that Caroline Levitt is basically just saying, hey, we released the statement yesterday. You should have seen it. And there's a reason why we put that statement out there, because we want to be as transparent as we can, while also protecting the sensitive negotiations that are currently going on. Well, another key moment was with a reporter named Jackie Heinrich, and Caroline Levitt was able to get her to admit that this war probably would not have started had President Trump been in office instead of Joe Biden.
Since the president often says that this war would not have started if he were in office, and
True.
And Putin confirmed that.
It's true. Do you accept that as truth? The
Probably.
European leaders do.
Well,
And President Putin himself said that, by
he
the way.
did say that.
Now, there is just one final piece of this press conference that is going viral. It's between Caroline Levitt and a reporter from the New York Times. I do have mixed feelings on this clip. Let's watch first, and we'll revisit at the very end.
Hey, if the point is to get everybody on the same page, why wouldn't Trump just take the call from Putin while the other leaders were in the room? He said it would be disrespectful to do that. But why is it disrespectful?
With all due respect, only a reporter from the New York Times would ask a question like that, Sean. The president met with all of these European leaders at the White House 48 hours after sitting down with President Putin on American soil. In fact, there was so much progress in the readout that was given to these European leaders immediately following his meeting with President Putin that every single one of them got on a plane 48 hours later and flew to the United States of America. And if I could just read for all of you some of the statements from those European leaders yesterday, you had President Zelensky himself saying it was a very good conversation. It was really good. We spoke about very sensitive points. The Secretary General, Mark Rutte, it was the president, only because of the president, that this deadlock was broken, but with President Putin by starting a dialogue. So these leaders, who this war is in their backyard, are very grateful that the president took that call and that he was there to provide them with a readout of Russia's thinking on this, something that was not done by the previous administration at all. Catherine.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you can definitely see why it's going viral. People on the right, people who are very MAGA, love the call out against the New York Times and how aggressive and how firm Caroline Levitt was. However, I will say I was a little disappointed in that moment. As ridiculous as the New York Times can be at times, I do think it was a fair and reasonable question. After all, you're trying to get everyone on the same page. You're trying to get everyone to sit and talk at the same table, right? So it therefore makes sense. Why wouldn't you put Putin on speakerphone to speak with everyone at the same table while everyone's there? Now, that doesn't mean that President Trump should have done that. That doesn't mean that there's no good explanation as to why that didn't happen. In fact, some people would argue that that was the smart thing to do, to take that phone call separately and then provide the readout to everyone else. After all, it's still very sensitive, still very fresh. These people haven't talked in quite a while, and so you're trying to break the ice and do so in such a way that's not going to rock the boat and scare anyone away from the table. So while the press can be obviously they're biased and obviously they're antagonistic towards the administration, I personally I thought it was a good question, and I would have loved to see maybe more thoughtful answer. But as always, this is just my opinion. It's just my analysis. It's okay if you disagree, and in fact, I would love to hear from you. Obviously, you are free to comment on any story, any topic in this video, but for the question of the day, let's go back to the original topic, President Trump talking about working his way up to heaven. What did you think about that? Were you surprised that he was that candid about it? Do you think he was joking? Do you think he was serious? Do you think these existential issues are things he thinks about more ever since the assassination attempts, or maybe because he's getting older as a grandfather and obviously as a father? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. It is a simple thing to ask for, but it does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.